community, and happy to be on another episode of our live streaming podcast. And I'm here, Sheena from NodeOps. Apparently, gonna miss Eric big time because, as I think one of my another favorite thing at NodeOps is always to hijack Eric's podcast seat. So I'm here for you guys today. Sheena calling in from NodeOps team, the 404 Soul, responsible for a lot many things, as I've always mentioned, and exciting times. Super excited because apparently I think we are just about a few days before we conclude 2025, and it's been a fabulous year. Thanks to all the support we have got from the community, a lot of things we have been doing, which of course you guys have always showed a lot of love and support in whatever NodeOps has been doing. So today, I will not be giving a lot of inputs from my side, but rather I have two amazing guests with me from the hashed Emergent team, the VC team at the investment team, right? That's what you call, if I'm not correct. Wrong, right. So please feel free to correct me because my job is not to be a podcast host. So I might do some errors. So please do bear with me. And yes, happy to welcome hashed Emergent here. Quickly, guys, let's have your introduction, a little bit about your Web3, journey so far, a little bit of your introduction, and of course, a quick sneak peek about what's your thought on the Web3 landscape.
Yeah, thank you for inviting us, Sheena. I'm Sharanya. I'm the vice president here at the investment team of Hashed Emergent. We're an early stage venture capital firm backing founders, particularly building in the blockchain space from the emerging markets. We've been doing so since the past 3 years. Currently, have deployed about $21 million of capital since inception. And apart from just investing in startups, we also do a lot of advocacy research initiatives to push the Indian ecosystem forward. We're the co-hosts of the India Blockchain Week. Sorry, sole hosts of the India Blockchain Week. We author the India Web3 Landscape Report. So yeah, been trying to push the ecosystem forward. And in terms of my quick view of what the Web3 landscape looks like right now, I think it's a lot of consolidation that's waiting to have that pent up demand, go up as soon as we have more clarity with what's happening with the AI trade slash the Fed. So yeah, exciting times ahead, definitely. Been a bit of a rough couple of months for the community in general, but I am very certain that we should be back on track soon. Vikram, over to you.
Yeah. So GM all and GM NodeOps community. So I'm Vikram. So I work as an investment analyst with Hashed Emergent. And alongside investments, I also lead research and contribute to a lot of programs over here, such as incubators, accelerators, and lead the IBW Demo Day. So I've been working with Hash since more than a year now, and I've seen a lot of things evolving in India when it comes to Web3 and blockchain. So to briefly talk about my journey, like I started as a Bitcoin miner, joining as a Bitcoin pools in around 2015-16. Later, I became a developer and then engineer, and then I went to study masters at IITB, where I used to do most of the research and engineering work around blockchains, distributed systems, and consensus mechanism, advanced cryptography, and things like those. And after that, I worked like around for 2.5 to 3 years in the space as an engineer and a researcher, and then I joined Hashed Emergent's investment team. Yeah, so that's a very brief journey of mine. And to talk about the Web3 landscape, I have seen it evolving, be it global landscape or be it Indian landscape, and Indian landscape in particularly. It has evolved very fast despite various, setbacks from regulations as well as slow regulatory clarity over there. So yeah, so it's evolving and it will be super big in like next 10 years.
Wow, that is so amazing to hear when you say it's going to be like super evolving. I think we have already come at a very advanced stage, irrespective of the market conditions, because I am a strong believer that whichever industry you're working in, there's always ups and downs in their cycles. And of course, that is what brings in the next change, right? Because if it's going to be stagnant and just moving in one direction, I think as a human tendency, we'll also tend to slow down. So the more challenges we have, the more we are going to be stressing about our nerves to ensure that we get the right solution. And correct me again if I'm wrong here, but I believe that Hashed Emergent has always been a very firm supporter for the Web3 builders across the globe. And you guys have been, your endeavor has been more towards an overall adoption and growth rather than just backing the projects, right? And I just collected a few stats, and I would like to, like, of course, feel free to validate them. Please feel free to correct them. So I also understand that, of course, I'm an Indian, and I love to talk about India's contribution towards the Web3 and the adoption overall. So I believe that we have been like third straight year into leading the global crypto adoption across the globe. Is that right?
So, Sheena, that's correct. Chain Analysis does a annual ranking of countries basis blockchain adoption. Of course, while the data is very, very encouraging, one key thing to note is that these parameters are adjusted on a GDP purchasing parity basis, in which case that gives a natural edge to India. But even in terms of absolute volumes, India is the third largest mobile wallet user of the world. So we do see a lot of activity originating from India on the blockchain side. And of course, the world knows about our developer ecosystem. So the ranking really is pertaining to the chain analysis report. And we've ranked number one for a third consecutive year.
That's amazing. A proud moment for all the Indians across the globe who are probably tuning in and or would be kind of, revisiting the recording. So that's really nice. A good, a loud cheers to us to achieve that. Of course, we are highly populated, but also highly populated with the right set of skill set to ensure that we're able to sustain that rank. Great. My second fact that I collected was that Indian Web3 startups raised about $653 million in the first 10 months of 2025, which apparently is up by 16% versus the entire 2024. Is this fact right?
So, Sheena, we do this benchmarking internally every year. And the tricky thing is, unlike the Web2 world, wherein you have the MCA filings to verify which Indian startups raised money, when it comes to Web3, most Indian entrepreneurs incorporate outside the country, whether it is a Delaware or Singapore or the likes. So we've really, basis the network that we have collated this data from multiple sources and include startups by founders who are, a product of the entire Indian environment. So whether it's like they grew up here or held a passport at a point in time, but even if they're not in India today, so whether it's a Sriram Kanan or Wagon Lair or even Sandeep, who's now relocated to Dubai, we did include a lot of these startups to truly ascertain how much fundraising has gone to Indian founders, and that figure is up over the last year, much in line with the broader markets. I do think that the first 10 months of the year had a lot of activity. It's kind of slightly slowed down in the past 2 months, understandably, but we are definitely way ahead the 2023 lows, and we even beat last year by a good mile. So yeah, 16% up over the entire year of 2024 in the first 10 months of 2025. So yeah, that's the headline.
Wow. And it's actually also very encouraging that, if there are funds being raised and VCs are trying to invest, that's also an indication that, yes, we are moving in the right direction and we're actually getting an indirect validation at the same time. Because many times, I myself being from a finance background and, in touch with a lot of consultants across, sometimes, when you're sitting with a big four colleague or an ex friend, they sometimes they are not able to understand what contribution are we typically doing, but these numbers speak louder than what the builders have been contributing in the space. So that's super nice, and I actually would really love to extend a shout out for this kind of a collision that you guys have done, because you just mentioned that many times those the founders have moved out of the country, but you've tried to collate all the information and try to bring in a proper way of computing these numbers and arriving at the metrics. That's super nice, actually. And the last fact that I have is that young investors, apparently between the age of 18 to 35, account for 75% of the active users. And this year, apparently, we have seen a rise in the female participation as well in the sector.
So yeah, maybe like I'll start with the insight. So we partnered with various exchanges. We do this every year. This is the fourth edition of the report. So we partner with the leading exchanges in India. Last year it was CoinDCX. This time it's CoinSwitch and our own portfolio company called Pi42. So yes, I think Gen Z or younger investors in general are the torchbearers of Web3 investing in India. They are typically more risk taking, given that Web3 does have a beta to even equities, and therefore have been allocating a lot more. I think there's a 27% increase in the number of traders in Web3 and of course, the trading volume have doubled from last year itself, partially because of the increase in asset prices, at least till the data came out in October, and partially because of the inherent growth in the number of people now getting exposed to Web3. And yeah, I mean, women participation is still less, but it has improved. Earlier, one in every 10 women were, Web3 traders, and now that number has reduced to 1 in 8, which is a good sign. It's a big increase from last year, but still miles to go, Sheena. I think this is just the start, and should the regulations rationalize, I think India has one of the most crippling tax regimes for crypto trading in the world. I do see this number incrementally go higher, and even government revenues on the back of it, really touching sky highs. But yeah,
Yeah,
that's
but myself being from a tax background, looking at the return forms as well. So the kind of simplification that they have tried to provide, they've tried to provide you more insights by, having a complete VDA disclosure. And again, it's see the underlying principle of a taxation is simple. As long as whatever money that you're generating and you're offering it under the right heads and offering it to tax, no government would have an issue. But if inherently you decide that, this is something which I want to keep it off the record, it's always going to
yeah,
be an issue. And I think personally, I feel the more the regulations become straightened up, might be a little difficult at times, because I know myself when I do the company structuring and all, a lot of people come back saying that they want to have a structuring, on a particular basis. But of course, there are always wins and ups and downs. It's a completely different ball game. I would not like to creep that in today's discussion, but I just want to make it clear, like, which is, if whoever is, kind of the builders who are looking out, again, if you're keeping all your legal aspects quite straightened up, you're fulfilling all the requirements, and from the regulatory aspect you're strong enough, I think there is no blocker, be it in any jurisdiction that you're functioning in. All right, so yeah, this got a little serious on the tax side. I don't know why the moment I hear the word tax
no,
I.
but Sheena, I completely agree. I mean, till the time the law is a certain way, we must all follow it, and we must keep pushing for the government to follow global standards to make it easy. But I don't think there's any disagreement on, we must do everything in a legal compliant manner. Hashed emergent is always, first comes that, and then we can keep lobbying for our own interests
Yes.
and the interests of the community.
Absolutely. And I'm really glad that off late a lot of conferences are having proper sessions, workshops on the legal and regulatory aspects. So that's also, kind of going to bring a wider adoption actually at the end of the day. And as you mentioned that, a lot of people have been like become more avid in using the wallets and etc. So I think it's also a big shout out to all the builders out there who have tried to simplify the solutions. So I think even at NodeOps, though I'm not a builder, I'm not a tech person, but every time when the team is sitting heads down, they want to make it as seamless as possible. Small example. Today, for the first time, I tried to create a game on my own. So if you remember the Nokia game, the snake game that we used to have, today I used NodeOps tools to actually create my own version in my own favorite colors of the snake game. And I also created a small leadership board. So I was pretty proud that a girl who's been into Excel sheets and using a pen and a paper to note down her, meeting notes, has actually ended up creating her own game. So was that was quite an interesting thing, and that also kind of encourages more people to join into this league that everyone is trying to simplify. All right, so I haven't heard Vikram from a long time, so I'm going to shoot my first question to Vikram. Vikram, what do you think the ecosystem trend that has surprised you the most for 2025?
So I think one of the trend, what I see is mostly on the RW and deepen side. So the adoption, particularly in India, in the sectors have grown. There is one more trend that we have been seeing, but particularly, things are not very concrete over here. But I think things will be evolving, and this is on the Web3 AI side. So one of the very other trends that we see is stable coins and infrastructure rails. That is where things have been evolving. We see a lot of new payment related companies that are adopting stable coins, and which are regulated firms which are FIU regulated, and solving all the international cross border transaction problems. So these are some of the uh, trends that we have been seeing. Yeah.
Amazing. Of course, I mean, we've ourselves are a AI driven deepen project. So I know the kind of focus and the kind of scaling that has been happening along with having the community getting involved. So wouldn't really deny on that at all. And of course, a few weeks back, I had Ashwari from Polygon joining the live stream with us. And yes, the kind of insights he gave about the whole scenario around the stable coins is pretty encouraging. Shana, you want to add what was your one pick of the change in the trends?
Yeah, I think we're seeing a lot of different kind of RWA assets come on chain. I hadn't anticipated that. I thought it'd be more your usual, equities and very secure debt instruments. But we recently backed companies who are, bringing Bollywood film tokenization, funding film projects on chain. And I think asset classes such as these that have good cash flows, decent enough visible return profile, can raise from a larger set of investors versus only your production houses in India having the ability to fund a Durandar or any kind of big kind of films, right? So we've seen a lot of the asset classes that were illiquid now using blockchain to become more liquid, increase efficiency, and I think that's a trend. I think even like going forward, it's going to blow up even more and more, and that wasn't something I was anticipating at the start of the year.
Well, the word Bollywood has kind of raised my ears. I'm sure you guys would have seen that big smile on my face. If you could just, uh, kind of give us more insights about what's happening on
So
the
yeah,
side.
we have a company called Mogafi, which basically stands for Music Game Films. They are an AI script writing tool that also verticalizes the entire film production supply chain. So from script writing all the way to production, and they produced the first major film in June, which was released called Kobera, that did about a 150 crore at the box office, and now they want to start making new films. They're starting with a Marathi film for which they've already raised some chunk on chain, and they want to sort of bring the entire IP world and become an IP acquisition play using crowd-funded, and not in the sense of just donation, but like actual real cash flows attached to what they buy. So yeah, that's something like right now it's in the form of an NFT that you hold, which gets redeemed for a certain amount. But as and when regulations start becoming more clearer, this could become to a large bucket of investors versus just purely on-chain enthusiasts as of today.
Of course, and Bollywood, I mean, not only plays a massive role in India in terms of influence, but also overseas. Like there are so many markets who love Bollywood, and I think this would also become like a classic use case, maybe.
Yeah.
And of course, nobody can bet on the kind of capital that is involved in the Bollywood sector.
Yeah, I mean, like, look at David Cameron, right? Like, sorry, the guy who made Avatar. He waited for an entire couple of decades before Avatar could be, received by the box office in terms of the revenue collections. And I think the funding equation is a very big role in terms of funding good movies out of India, right? People have the best talent, but sometimes they fall short of Hollywood or even movies made in China because of budgetary constraints. And I think that can really be solved with this technology.
Super.
And to
Super.
add to this, I think on the
Yeah.
Mugabe point and the RWA trend. So very recently, we also saw the global trend around ICOs and launchpads coming back. And yields are another interesting area where a lot of protocols we have seen, focusing on particularly providing better yields. So Mugafi's launchpad or is around convergence of RWA plus film financing plus launchpad plus yields. So this is something which was very interesting to see, particularly in coming from India, and which is much more concrete and sustainable. And I think apart from Mugafi, also there have been a lot of other players who are building this or who will be building this soon and coming out in the market. Yeah.
And of course, India has always been a like as per the like general mentality of across the population. It's like yield is something that is always of very interest. Like we have seen our parents and all, like, trying to figure out more into something like an FD or something, but the next generation was always very excited to have different avenues where they could invest. With stronger staking and yield programs, I think that's another wider adoption that would be seeing a lot of change in the next upcoming quarters as well. Super interesting. So connected with the same, I mean, I just want to know one more thing, that what's your view as a developer hub? So what do you think accelerates, us compared to the rest of the market? What is that the builders in India like are totally kind of doing better compared to the other builders across the globe? Any particular trend or sector that you want to highlight here?
Yeah, Vikram, maybe I can start and you can chime in.
Yeah.
So India, just the sheer number of people who believe in a great quality education and upskilling, I think that sets us apart from most emerging markets. If you go to Africa, you'll see a lot more fintech innovation. If you go to Southeast Asia, you'll see a lot of gaming innovation. But in India, developers are very, very versatile. They build across sectors of infrastructure, DeFi, entertainment, and the likes. And they're also very willing to now start taking risks and start expanding their horizons. And that is a function of the kind of success India's startup ecosystem has seen in the last 10, 15 years. What we don't do a good job of is actually making sure that these young engineers or software developers who are experimenting with Web3 while in college actually translate into joining Web3 full time, because right now there's also a huge war for AI talent, right? And a lot of developers end up going there. And this other thing is that we have not been able to attract quality developers from the Web2 world into Web3. So they don't have people that they look up to in the same industry, so they tend to shy away from this industry, even though pay scales sometimes are pretty strong in Web3, right? So I think that is something that can improve. And when people look at India, I have seen a lot of ecosystems actually cut back on their hackathon spends, and I think that's not the wisest strategy, because you know this kind of talent needs to be particularly nurtured and pushed around, so that they start developing the consumer apps, or even superior infrastructure that the developer community has already built out. So those are some of the characteristics, and I think India is on track to improve on even the US in terms of the overall global developer base in the next 2 to 5 years. So it is ours to lose in terms of the opportunity set out there. Vikram, any other thoughts?
Yeah, so I think Sharana correctly said like Indian developer base or developer hub is very diverse and versatile. Just to add like more insights on this, so interestingly when we talk about ecosystems and various VMs technical terms that ecosystem talk about, so usually we see a lot of EVM developers or Solidity developers in the market all across the world, and then there will be some chunk of builders building around Solana and few other ecosystems. But I think interestingly in India, we have much more larger developer base who are building on this very specific chains also for very specific VMs also. For example, if someone want a Cairo developer, like some global company want a Cairo developer, we'll have that talent in India. If someone want a Funksi developer like that is building around Ton, we will have that talent in India. And one of the reasons for this is like I think Indian developers do experiment a lot, they explore a lot, and I think that is one very interesting thing that we see. I think next market after India would be maybe Africa, but India is primarily biggest market when it comes to developer talent, which is very diversified across all of this different pools. And one more thing that I find very interesting is a lot of these developers usually come from colleges. Initially, they are just participating in hackathons, developing codes, learning things. Eventually, they start building things, start building projects, and then they slowly try to transition towards building entrepreneurs. And that is where we can see maybe in the next few years we will see a lot of quality projects, founders coming from India. I think most of the base right now is still in the transitioning phase. So that is like one of the very interesting observations I've had in the Indian developer hub.
Well, I mean, we ourselves have a grant program, and we've been doing a couple of hackathons across the globe, some IRL events, some online hackathons. And it's really nice the kind of pace with which the developers pick up. So, whenever, I mean, when we get hackathon applications, of course, we do have a good chunk which is coming from India as well as from the rest of the world. And typically, I've seen that the pace of learning or grasping things is faster. And what I also like about is, that whole thing of competing. I think that is one inherent quality that most of the builders from India do have. They want to, be moving beyond their boundaries to attain something. And I think the founders who are from India, I mean, I don't want to name anyone, but yes, when I'm going to say this, you guys are going to be able to identify who I'm talking about. But most of the founders I have seen, I have always been giving a helping hand. It's not that, they have built and they don't want to support the rest of the founders. This is something superbly good, because when they are developing, they want the whole ecosystem also to dwell further along with them. And it's not that, they just want to be one among the crowd. They want the whole crowd to progress. So I think that has been one of our reasons for growth. And of course, I'll not deny at all on the African continent as well. They have been trying to come out from their shells and trying to participate. They have always been very eager to learn. In fact, we do have a good amount of our ambassadors who are from the African region. And believe me, that whole hunger of, learning, the whole hunger of, understanding what's happening and trying to get into, getting into sessions, trying to learn is incredible. Vikram, I have one question for you, because Chanya was mentioned that, when it comes to getting the developers from the web 2, so, there is an inherent inhibition to move towards web 3. You are coming from IIT Bombay, right? And it's one of the premium most institutes of engineering in the world, actually. So, as your colleagues around or your alumni batches, when you talk about that you have been instrumental in the industry space, what's a typical, feedback that you get? Are they curious to know? Are they curious to join? Would just love to have this, first-hand information from you.
Yeah. So I think it's a two-part thing. So one is like Web 2 developers in academics and Web 2 developers which are working right now. And the way I see both of this transition and come to Web 3 is very different. So for example, I'll take an example of a very interesting college called SRM. So now this is mostly driven by, what other peers are doing. For example, this college called SRM, it has very successful batch, Web3 batch of 2024. So there were a few developers over there doing things, working on crypto, and that was all their individual enthu that was coming in. Soon, these people started building things. They started, working for some ecosystems, and looking at them, a lot of other college students also got interested into getting into Web3. And same, I think I would recall the time when I was in academics. I think very rarely people used to build around blockchains. Crypto, Ethereum, everything was far away. So I think there used to be a very few colleges. Again, same story. There used to be some hackathon participants who used to explore newer hackathons. They used to get into crypto hackathons, and then that would be an example. And then soon more people, more students would follow them. And this has been the observation since like past 10 years. I think 2015, 2016, when Ethereum was new, or be it today. I think that's how most of that transition happens for a lot of this Web 2 developers and academics coming into Web 3. So now this is the first part. Another part is on how the builders who are actually working professional, those get into Web3. So this is mostly driven by them looking to do something new. Them basically, for example, let's say there is a backend engineer, they'll be looking for new jobs, and eventually some of them may end up applying for a crypto company or a Web3 AI company, and that is where they just get into the company as a Web2 focused role, like building backends and all, and eventually they want to become a solidity developer or a smart contract engineer or a security engineer, and that is how this transition happened. So this has been like my observation of how this both of these pools get into the Web3. And additionally, I think the people who are very new, which are coming from very isolated zones, I think over there, I mean, they eventually end up discovering a lot of hackathons and builder programs, and that is how they come to Web3. And I think grant program is another one. So there would be a lot of entrepreneurs building in the Web2 space, and they might be looking for some grants or some quick funding to build something, prototype something. I think that is where grants also attracts a small pool to come, bring them into Web3. So I think that has been my observation, and I think this is very interesting. I think if we touch upon the signals, properly, do proper activations in colleges, proper activations along, in this builder professional community, we can bridge a lot of those talent pool into the Web3 space.
Well, you're compelling me to drop an alpha here. So, NodeOps actually has already started collaborations with some colleges and universities. Today itself, we announced our collaboration with a leading institute in Jaipur called as LNM, where we will be going there to support their upcoming hackathon. And again, what you mentioned something was it sounds very basic, but it forms a very important part of the puzzle. How, from a developer, you are transitioning yourself into a founder. Because as a founder, you're not just a builder, but you're actually a visionary or a leader. And that is how you understand the reason, the way to scale something that you have an idea. So NodeOps is actually now partnering with universities and colleges, and we have already got interest from a couple of colleges within India as well as outside India. In fact, our ambassadors are going to go on the ground in their respective locations to kind of help in this entire journey. That's what NodeOps is for. That's why we say we simplify the lives of the builders. You have an idea, you just concentrate on your idea how you want to scale, and we are there to take care of the rest. In fact, would love to take this opportunity once to also throw some light on our product, which is called as Autogen, which is like a one kit deployment. So what essentially happens is, you think about it like a AI powered infra tool or a sandbox, whatever you want to call. So you have an idea, you want to scale it, just land there. It's a one click deployment for you. And that is something which a couple of builders have been using off late, and we've got a good feedback. So I think the whole journey of making things simplified, being from an infrastructure side, I think we are also somewhere contributing to the right direction from the kind of insights that you both have been able to bring on the table today. All right, it's been very interesting. Let's move a little bit on a different tangent now from builders to now let's move on to the founders a bit. So you guys have been supporting a lot of projects across the globe, and you guys have always had that whole idea of kind of helping them scale from day one or day zero and be like a long-term partner to them. And I myself, I've known your team for a long time. In fact, the whole, like you mentioned, the sole organizer of IBW is itself a testimony that, your support towards the journey of a builder to a founder. So now let's come on to the stage of the founder. What are the typical challenges or typical, you think the roadblocks that the founders face when they are in the fundraising stage? Or maybe if you want to kind of pivot a bit, what is your key takeaway points that you want to let the founders know when they are applying to Emergent, hashed Emergent? I'm leaving it to you, very open-ended.
Yeah. So, Sheena, thank you for the kind words, first of all. Secondly, in terms of the question at hand, it is very difficult for, and there are a couple of reasons for it. If you look pre 2022, there used to be a whole lot of domestic investors, be it Sequoia, Axel, Matrix, Bloom, B Capital, all of them would invest in Indian Web3 startups. And the broader sentiment with the blow up of FTX and Terra, etc., had a very damaging effect on the overall fundraising environment for founders from India, from the domestic investors. And while there are a lot of dedicated blockchain funds in the world, they're largely focused only on, say the US, maybe some in UAE and Singapore, but India is just too far out from their, entire, worldview in in that sense to sort of have a dedicated strategy for founders from India. So I think that's where I think Hashed Emergent becomes one of the very few investors who can actually lead a pre-seed seed round for founders from India. And therefore, I would encourage all of them to, if they have to fundraise, they need to start not relocating per se, but spending a lot of physical time and energy in, say, a Dubai or a New York or a Singapore, because in India it's very difficult to raise a $3 million round. It's just a fact. Second, in terms of what they can do if they want to capture the attention of an investor, a couple of things that I think can really benefit Indian founders is that they really need to practice that pitch. Most Indian founders are very very good at their technical prowess. They can build products in the fastest time possible, and they lack that the narration skills or the soft skills that come in it. You're trying to stitch together the story, right? At the pre-seed stage, it's not that you have a functioning product with great traction. So you need to explain to an investor how you reimagine the future, and I think Indian founders, are not very good at it. So if possible, take some presentation classes, repeat your pitches again and again, try and be as concise as possible. In the first 10-15 minutes of a pitch, the investor knows whether they want to invest or not. So like, use less words, use more imagery in your decks. There's no point having a thesis document in front of an investor you're meeting for the first time. Research the investor. Do they have exposure in that particular subsector? Do they have competing companies? Why would this work for them? And try and sort of like give life to that story that you've already imagined and are working towards. So less is more. Practice your pitch and take classes if you think it's not coming across. And fourth, spend time in these jurisdictions where actually the investors who have appetite for Web3 exist. So that would be my four major points of advice to founders from India. Vikram, please add anything that you might find.
Yeah. So I think I completely agree with what Sharon has said, and getting that access, though reaching out to the first investor is very difficult sitting here in India. And just to add to what Sharon has mentioned, so let's say even if they get an introduction to an investor, they're talking to someone, they are under DT process with some investors. What Indian founders need to focus more on is getting feedback and working on those feedbacks. Very important. I think even if we get access to the investors, converting that into an investment is a even bigger task, given that the bar is very high. I think if Indian founders focus more on the feedback, focus more on getting more clarity, even if they get a pass from any investor, that feedback will be very important. For them to maybe reach out to the investor again, or maybe by reaching out to the other investor. So yeah, I think that is one thing I would like to add.
So, well, I mean, I will agree, but on certain points, I might not agree with both of you. Well, I think there is another reason to it. I mean, I might be wrong, and I don't know whether I should be saying that on a public forum or not. But I think the issue is more towards that whole outlook of the division between a first world, second world, and third world. Sorry to say, but sometimes I feel that investors, they feel that where they're backing people coming from US or these countries, so they're backing like high quality projects. They are not even understanding what is the problem that they are trying to solve. And many times, like you said, the presentation skills, yes, of course, we might be lacking a bit on that, but there is a perception. And I think the reason why Web3 keeps talking about cutting down on boundaries and not bothering about, where are you coming from and trying to penetrate this in every corner of the world, I think when that real meaning of why the whole blockchain thing came and trying to cut across the boundaries, and the moment we get out of this whole story of, gauging someone by the passport they hold, I think things will change overnight, and that's going to bring a drastic change. That's what I personally believe. I mean, I don't want to get into controversial discussions
No,
over
no,
here.
no, not at all. Sheena,
Here
I
on
just think
this forum.
that, because capital is even more scarce for Web3 in India, the bar is much higher. But I do find it very easy as an Indian Web2 company to raise money from India.
Yeah.
So if you look now, Y Combinator with the listing of Misho, with frequently founders getting into some of these top accelerators, um, and the ecosystem in the country being so strong, it is easier in the Web2 world to raise money. And even there, I think the if you are saying, when we can be proud enough to say that the Indian technical skills are better, I think it's very normal to say that the Indian presentation skills, because we see founders from Nigeria, we have portfolio companies in Singapore and the US. It's not that somebody's trying to deliberately discriminate against you, but if you don't make an impression, then it
Yeah.
just, like, for example, Sheena, we've had such strong entrepreneurs who build very technical products or will end up joining the tech teams of the most sophisticated L1 L2s. Not one token from India has managed to sustain $1 billion valuation. And that is a reality, and investors chase returns. So,
Yeah. Of
and in
course.
crypto, even that becomes more pronounced, right? Because your attention economy plays even more. So I think, I mean, of course, there is no, it's a lot of gray.
Yeah.
But
Right.
you want to maximize your chances, right? And of course, this reality should change. People should not have biases. I also agree, but people do. And right now, people have biases, and therefore, a lot of our portfolio founders, the biggest feedback we give to them is that, with what like we connect them to the best investors across the world, because we are co-investors with them on account of Hashed, right? We've backed the likes of Sandbox, Axie Infinity, Aptos, ZK Sync, Athena, and the likes. But their feedback to us is very much like, okay, it's a pre-seed product, and beyond a point, technical skills, like, like, yes, we have multiple L1s, multiple L2s, but the way you sort of present that story is very important. So I think it's an important thing, but yeah, like, don't let any of, like, the investors, be it me or Vikram here on the podcast, stop you from like pushing forward. And like, I'm very happy to see the ecosystem win. So yeah, take our advice with a pinch of salt for sure.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And I think the key takeaway over here is that, the moment, like, we are pretty confident on our technical skills, we've been shipping at a faster pace. I think individually, I think one advice to everyone out there is, of course, practice your script. I mean, yes, I do feel that sometimes, we feel that we can nail it because technically we're very strong. Even before, when I do any podcast or I do any kind of a public panel, I ensure that I read my script 3 4 times. So I think one good key takeaway that you have mentioned, of course, is that, we need to be practicing what we want to pitch. There's no need to oversell something. I think that is one tendency I feel that, we need to change. Like you said, make it like less word heavy and try to leave that impact that you want to have. So, and like, I still remember when I was in college, there was from Stephen's College, there was their principal to my school who had come during my graduation ceremony. He just mentioned that whenever you say something, leave it in such a manner that the other person has that feeler and some more. Let that come from your audience, and it should not be that you keep adding that and some more. And that is one principle that I've always lived by. And I think, yes, like you mentioned, I think some mentorship programs, and the like you mentioned, the red signals, and you have been highlighting, giving this feedback. So, the more we practice on that, I think things will change. So, a quick, piece of advice to everyone out there: you guys are no less than anyone else. It's just that we need to practice it a bit more and ensure that we're able to compete.
And just to add one more thing, I think to the presentation thing and the multiple world thing and how people perceive others. So I think one thing that this is more on the solution side. One thing that a Indian founder can do is they can be very public on crypto Twitter, so that the global investors have visibility into them, like who they are, what they are building, so that maybe if they have some first impression on them, that would diminish, and maybe it would take some time for founders to build up on these presentation skills. But if an investor get a much more long term view of visibility of them, I think that can help them additionally, until they learn to make those presentations. Yeah.
Perfect, perfect. I'm sure these are going to be very useful insights. And in fact, three of us sitting together and, trying to understand or, decode the main issue that, some of our founders have faced. It's, I think, going to be very useful. And maybe we are able to bring in a better impact. So, yeah, that really goes well. So let's very quickly now touch upon the IBW. Honestly, I was quite frustrated when people started tweaking. Like, I many times have gone vocal by saying that people love to tweet something controversial just to gain attention. I want here all the audience I want you guys to support me. The whole fact that came that IBW was about merch farming is complete myth. I have been to global conferences. I know how people are into the whole fight of getting the merch. It is across every conference. I have myself seen at Singapore people coming out with bags which are larger than their size. And of course, IBW is there out for the builders, and we all know that Bangalore is a hub of students. And the reason they want the merch is not because they want that T-shirt or that merch; it's just because they want to have an association with that particular project. So I sometimes feel it's like a sign of a respect or a sign of a support. Could you please break down this
Yeah.
whole attention-seeking tweets by some of the people saying that IBW was about merch gathering or merch farming?
I think, Sheena, this is very, very judgmental on account of those who just thought it's merch farming. I think the idea that, people are coming to a conference, most of them being very young, are getting onboarded onto the ecosystem, I think is a huge win, right? If, we had a record number of sales in terms of both sponsorships, tickets, and if you look at the sessions, at least I have been to all major conferences in the world. All the conference, like all the speaker sessions, were 80% plus in terms of occupancy. And we have, we're going to be launching all the videos and the photos shortly. You can see it was not like an incentivized crowd was there to sit for a session and we give a giveaway at the end of the speaker session. So that is natural engagement, and I don't find it, it's like saying, oh, airdrop farmers are bad for the overall ecosystem. I mean, that's how things started out, right? Like if you look at Uber, they started giving out discounts and really subsidizing Uber rides to begin with, because that's how a network gets formed. That's how a lot of the deepen thesis plays out. So, judging people just because they were, sitting in a line to get merch because merch was on offer is extremely like disservice to these folks, because these are the new folks who are getting onboarded. If somebody already knew about on-chain DeFi and is only coming for the session to hear us, like that's a very small segment of people, and we will never look at mass adoption. So it's okay to farm engagement, and good on you that you do it. Just remember that for every person pulling the industry down, there are a lot of us, including the people here, who are trying to push the ecosystem forward. I mean, IBW was a net financial negative for us for the last 2 years, right? In the sense that we make investments, and it was not an expense; it was an investment for something like a big conference that India can have, and I'm sure it'll reap dividends, in the years to come. And we plan to make it even bigger next year because Dev Connect is also coming to India, so we might have a few surprises for the community then.
Absolutely. And I think airdrop farming, or you're talking about merge farming, is something that projects thought was the right way to signal out adoption. So
Yeah,
now, if you want to come back and complain about it, I mean, it's like, please take a stand. That's
yeah,
what
and
I
it's
just,
not like there's no integrity issue, right? Like they're not doing anything illegal, or they're not trying to like do something that is fraudulent. So I don't understand the big deal at all.
yeah. And I think IBW is a great initiative, and especially that, you are trying to cater to a lot of students, because I myself have come down to IBW for, I think this was the only year that I missed out, but I've been, coming regularly from last 3 years that I've attended IBW. I think with every year passing, the quality has been, raising its bars. And of course, it also comes along with ETH India Global, right, at the same time. And I did get a chance to see some of the videos of students hacking their builders hacking there. It's incredible. And in fact, NodeOps itself was one of the hackathon winners during one of the IBW seasons. So I have been in those rooms. I have seen my team presenting. I've seen the validation we have received. And that was, again, that initial push that we wanted to scale further. So it's really nice that I think I'm happy that I picked this up on this live stream. Yes. And so that's cool about the IBW. Any other key learnings from the IBW conference this year, or any particular signal or any trend that you observed?
Yeah, so Sheena, I think one thing is that we've realized that the timing needs to be better, in the sense that a lot of the international speakers who could make it for the first edition, were not able to do so this time because there was a Binance Blockchain Week and Solana Breakpoint happening. So people who are flying in from the US cannot take three weeks off, or three weeks on on the road. So that is something that I think is a learning, and we of course will take advantage of Dev Connect. So I think at least the speakers will be extremely relevant folks who you've always seen on crypto Twitter come. And the second is, it's always our effort and our intention to subsidize the conference to a place where every single participant can attend. This year we had a lot of B2B partnerships wherein we had subsidized and even made the cost of entry free for a lot of developers or students, and we hope to sort of make that pie bigger while making sure that the conference is sustainable financially through early outreach to sponsors, doing bigger collaboration with some of these leading chains. I think those are the two big takeaways. Vikram, anything on your end?
Yeah, so I would particularly like to highlight one of the very interesting, events we did. This was IBW Demo Day. So this time we experimented with something new, and we had a lot of new signals and learnings as well as observations. So this year we announced that we'll be investing at least a 250K check in one startup as a part of IBW Demo Day pitching event. And interestingly, we saw more than 100 plus applications from super mature founders applying from Africa, like some of the regions like Nigeria, Kenya, South Africa. We also had some of the applications coming from the APAC region, and this was very interesting in the first place. Most of these builders were super mature. These companies had good traction in terms of revenue, in terms of user base. Apart after that, we shortlisted like around 6 to 10 startups from this. And interestingly, we also had Zero G ecosystem as one of our ecosystem partners. And for the investment act, we had some of the major blockchain ecosystems in India like Aptos, Avalanche, and Polygon sponsoring it. And the finalist crowd was also very diversified. So we had like one team called Sorted Wallet flying down from Africa to India just to present and have that opportunity. We also had one of the very good founders from coming from US and Russian region. So the project was called Hito, a hardware wallet. So this was again like very interesting. Uh, as a part of this, I think even Network School did give us a lot of good support because they also saw there was a good quality. So they did sponsor a lot of our winners with Network School memberships. And additionally, we post event, we did see a lot of VCs and ecosystem lining up to meet those founders. And founders were very happy because they got a lot of good connects, and ecosystems were also very happy. And I think that was like one of the many successful events that we did, and we had got a very good signals over there, and it was one of the very successful events. And as a part of this, the conclusion was we ended up investing into one project called Panura Exchange, and we deployed around 530K, leading their current ongoing round. Yeah.
Incredible, incredible. That's really nice. Okay, I'm going to take a small credit very quickly. All the energy that you saw at IBW was also because of Nodovs hosting an amazing bowling event just a night before. So we pumped up all the muscles for all your builders, and that's why you had the huge crowd there with the maximum energy. So yeah, Nurav did a very out of the box. We did a bowling event. No showcasing, nothing. Just pure bowling and networking. So that was just a day before you guys started with IBW. All right, I'm going to conclude this session on a very different note. Instead of taking closing sentences, because I think each one of us will always summarize whatever we were talking about. Let's do a rapid fire. I'm like a big fan of, talk shows and all. And being a podcast host has been like one of my dreams. I'm going to live it today. So I'm going to quickly ask you just 4 questions and we're going to wind up this amazing session. So, my first question, and feel free, whoever wants to shout out the answer. So, rapid fire prompt number
Come,
one.
go ahead. Yeah.
Let's start. One emerging subsector in India you're most bullish on.
Stablecoin reels.
Okay. What about you?
Deepen.
Okay. Oh, wow. I love it. Okay. Second prompt. Biggest misconception investors have about Indian Web3.
India's only developers and not that builders and entrepreneur talent.
Yeah, we're going to change that. We're going to change that soon.
Biggest misconception that Indian developers only want to farm chains.
Okay. I love that. We're going to change everything. Okay, advice to founders thinking about raising in 2026.
Go to the centers of Web3, New York, Singapore, and Dubai.
Perfect.
Also, I would add chase for clarity and seek feedbacks, and don't just chase narratives. Yeah.
Perfect. That's actually very well said. You guys have touched upon most important aspects. Last question. In one sentence, what's your vision for India's Web3 ecosystem by the end of 2026?
Um, Clear regulatory framework that protects users and founders both.
Amazing. Vikram.
More ecosystems coming to India, more builders emerging. We'll see more projects by the end of 2026.
All
And
right.
as a part of DevCon also.
Yeah, of course, I'm myself super excited for that. I'm glad that I don't have to travel outside the country this time. All right, so that brings us to an end to this amazing session. Before we sign off, any closing sentences, anything that you wanna shout out to the NodeOps community or to the Hash Emerging community or to the Web3 community or to Indian Builder?
Yeah. I mean, I just want everybody to hang in there. The bear markets look particularly brutal, and this is a bear market in an overall secular bull run. So hang in there. Things are going to change, and you have quality people building. So be heads down, focus on the fundamentals, and you will make it on the next side.
Very well put up.
So I just want to add, like, build until it's done, as it's written over here, and we are all gonna make it together, and just hodl.
And I'll leave a small gyan, gyan for our people who don't understand, a small piece of advice. I think when it's a bear market or a down, that's the best time to make the best connections, best time to spend time to learn from each other because the moment it picks up momentum, no one has time. So this is actually the best time to sit and make your best connections and network. All right. Thank you, both of you, for joining us today. I know you guys had a very, very rough schedule after the IBW. You guys are exhausted, and I'm glad that I could catch still both of you, still afresh from the IBW memories. Looking forward to hear a lot from Hashed Emergent. And of course, the community can follow your X handles to get the latest updates. And till then, signing off from NodeOps. Eric, I'm sorry I took away your seat again. I hijacked it. But yes, I'm sure the community is going to miss you. So you can leave back some comments on my performance on today's podcast.
Thank you, Sheena, for having us, and yeah, thank you for the listeners for listening to us, and yeah, let's wag me.
Thank you,
All right.
Shina, and
Thank
thank you,
you.
Nodops
Yeah,
community.
thanks.
Bye bye.